After recording this interview, Blair announced he'll retire in early 2025. Thanks to Blair for his leadership in BC real estate and for making time for us on the critical path. Welcome to The Critical Path, Greater Vancouver Realtors podcast exploring professionalism and innovation in real estate. I'm your host, Jesse Lalime, and each episode we'll sit down with industry leaders to discuss critical issues and the paths we must take to overcome them. Today we welcome the CEO of your regulator. No, it's not Jeff King. He's the CEO of GVR, and we are not your regulator. Your regulator is the BC Financial Services Authority, BCFSA. We're two different organizations, but we share a common interest, and that is the enhancement and elevation of professionalism within real estate in BC. With that, we're happy to welcome BCFSA's CEO, Blair Morrison, to the Critical Path today. Thanks for joining us, Blair.
Thank you so much for having me. Glad to be here.
It's really cool. Before we get started, I'd just like to get into a little bit about yourself. We were talking a little bit before we started recording. How did you become the Grand Poobah at BCFSA, where you oversee the province's nearly 30,000 licensees, amongst so much else?
It's a great title. I have a lot of them, including the Superintendent of Real Estate and Financial Institutions. So BCFSA is the regulator of BC's financial service sector. And of course, that includes real estate, realtors, real estate development marketing, mortgage brokers, but it also includes financial institutions like credit unions and also pension plans. So BCFSA covers financial service sectors in the province. It's about a third of the GDP, and as we like to say, some of the most important financial decisions that British Columbians will make in their entire life.
Without a doubt. And I mentioned off the top that we are two different organizations, but sometimes that's something our members struggle with a little bit, what GVR does versus what BCFSA does. So specifically for our realtors listening, can you kind of differentiate there for us?
Yeah. So BCFSA, as you said earlier on quite correctly, is the regulator. So what I like to say is offering services in our financial service sector is not a right, it's a privilege. And the privilege, no matter if you're a realtor, a credit union, a trust company, is a registration one. The government has viewed the services that realtors provide in this province as really important. And it's set up a regime whereby you must be licensed and approved by the regulator. Once you're through that, there are also, we get into where GVR plays, which is the various associations of regulators, geographically based, in terms of how operations include in those areas.
So then specifically thinking about real estate, what is the focus at BCFSA right now when it comes to realtors?
So what I'd say is BCFSA's job is to instill confidence in the sector. And we do that two ways. First of all, through a review of safety and soundness. We want to make sure that the individuals, the licensees, the regulated entities, are understanding risk, understanding the risk they see, and managing that risk. Are they going to continue to be safe and sound in this very changing world? And secondly, equally important, is to protect consumers. Bottom line is, and we've talked about it, very important decisions: buying your first home, buying a home, getting insurance, deciding where to put your money in a credit union, taking a pension. All those are key. So we want to make sure that consumers are protected. The bottom line is confidence. We want to make sure that when people come and use services in the sector, real estate included, people have confidence that they're dealing with professional, well-trained, experienced individuals who can help them through these very complicated transactions.
It's been a focus of ours over the years, public image kind of campaigns and things like that, where confidence is such a critical factor in the way realtors are viewed. How can realtors work with BCFSA to improve professionalism within the industry?
Yeah. So it's an interesting question. I mean, regulated and versus regulator. It almost sounds like you are at a point where you should be fighting all the time. And in fact, what we've tried to do is have, and GVR has been great on this, an open conversation, an open dialogue with realtors around the province in terms of what's on their mind, what we're seeing. So you first of all start with an open conversation and dialogue. And what I'll say, Jesse, is we will disagree sometime, and that's okay. It's about a conversation and a dialogue and better understanding. Where our interests align is we want to make sure that people go to licensed professionals when they're undertaking real estate transactions. So realtors like those in GVR. And at the bottom line is we want to make sure that we're dealing with bad actors where there are some. The vast majority of people I've dealt with in the province in the real estate space, honest, hardworking, trustworthy, wanting to do the right thing for their families, their communities, and their clients. But unfortunately, we do have some bad actors. So we need to deal with those. And when we deal with them, basically what we're trying to do is make sure that the public knows that, again, when they come and use a licensee, a professional realtor in the province, they can feel comfortable that that individual is trained, licensed, and looking out for their best interest.
That's another kind of avenue where our interests align a bit. That's a stated goal in our new strategic plan, intolerance for bad actors and that kind of thing. So that's really great to hear. One of the things that came, or that I should say went into that strategic plan was a white paper that we did about a year ago now that outlined several recommendations for how realtor professionalism could be improved in BC. And one of those things was higher entrance standards. And so I know it's a little bit maybe premature to kind of talk about it because, like you said, there needs to be that dialogue process. Those conversations need to happen. But I mean, I think that's somewhere where we align too, right? Raising the bar to get people into the business so that we can eliminate some of those bad actors.
We are absolutely agreed with a higher level of professionalism, a core level of professionalism for everyone who is in the sector. We support that. We do that through continuing education, as GVR does, but also from our perspective in terms of the licensing process, requirement to continue to be. In terms of standards coming in, absolutely. We want to make sure that the new entrants are flowing through with a level of comfort and experience that the people can trust. Lots of conversations to go on with that, and we are pleased to be part of it. And, I want to recognize GVR for, taking a step from an industry perspective and bringing that forward for conversation. And that's a conversation with you and your members. It's a conversation with the regulator. And, how we move forward is something that we will talk about and agree or not agree or agree on a path forward whereby we can continue to focus on professionalism in the sector. Very important perspective, very important outcome for the regulator.
And very important work to be done. Right?
Absolutely.
So we've talked a lot about bad actors. What is BCFSA's focus on enforcement?
So it's a great question. And, as I said, we've talked about earlier, we do get a lot of calls in. We would like to try to be moving to a more proactive approach, right? Rather than simply responding to what we hear, actually be out there in the marketplace ahead of, or at least with trends. And we do that with data, and we do that with input from all realtors across the province. What I'd say from a philosophy perspective is we really want to make sure that we're dealing with the most egregious, the most the activities that are bringing confidence in the system down. And what we have been doing is we have a fairly robust toolbox in terms of what opportunities, what options we have. And what you've seen is a more fines that are increasing or penalties that are increasing because we're trying to go after the most egregious of those activities. So, we do publish our data on our website. We talk about the numbers of fines and the value and the numbers of the penalties. And what you will see is those penalties dollars are going up. Complaints, not all complaints that call in actually make their way ultimately to enforcement. So that's always a data point, an important one. But what's actually more important is what's coming out of the end of the process. How are we dealing with the bad actors? Is it an appropriate focus to make sure that behaviors are changed?
We were talking a little bit before, too, about data and the way data is just so much more prevalent now. And one of the things BCFSA is doing to kind of help their understanding more about what's happening is the data call, which a lot of the brokers listening will be very familiar with.
Right.
Talk to us a little bit about the data call. What makes the data you're getting useful to you?
Yeah. So when we think of what we want BCFSA to be, we want it to be a modern, efficient, and effective regulator. And, with data and the information, more importantly, that comes from that data and that knowledge that comes from that data is increasing in your business, is increasing in every business. And as a regulator, it needs to increase in ours. What we use the data that we receive from the sector are those two focuses. We make regulation, we make policy direction. We want to make sure that when we make choices, they're grounded in core facts, in information. And we hear a lot of what this realtor says and what that realtor says, but having the aggregate data come to us and being able to analyze it, it helps us make better decisions on a policy perspective. On the other side, going after bad actors, right? The data is out there. Sometimes in the past, we as a regulator haven't been able to access it. And again, it's very important, it's personal, it's all of those things. But we are obligated to do the best we can, and we're going to do that using data to make sure that we're understanding our policy decisions and, where appropriate, going after bad actors. And so often the case is we have someone call us up and say, hey, I've heard about X, but unless we can get the data about X, it's just a call. And that's all we can do with it. So when you think data, we're not interested in being data kings. In fact, we're very interested in sharing what the data we have back out with the segment, with realtors across, to help you understand what we're seeing. But the two focuses will be policy work and also enforcement work, dealing with those bad actors.
And that kind of leads me to my next question, because when you're talking about measuring some of the results of what is happening, what is the confidence indicator for BCFSA? How do you know what you're doing is effective?
That's a really great question. I mean, we do survey. We do go out and talk to not just the people that we regulate, but also the general public. We have received a larger amount of calls and complaints, and that's sort of been trending upwards for a number of years now. And the number we get is, we get a significant amount every month. And the bottom line is, what we want to make sure is we're trying to use data and our information better to see, are those calls, something that is a frustration with the system, which is important, which is something you and the regulator want to make sure that we're reducing friction. But also, what is that information? Are there really important issues where customers' monies are misaligned, where there's self-dealing? We want to make sure we're dealing with those cases and those circumstances with all of our resources. So, it's about a combination of making sure that we're communicating to you as a sector what we're seeing. We're communicating to the public in terms of the area of focus. And you will have seen, a more focused enforcement kind of approach that you would have seen over the last couple of years as we try to deal with those bad actors in the system.
So for our members, how does this all tie together? Like the bigger picture for our members who might be caught up and running their businesses day to day, right? Because we hear a lot about, the griping about, it's more paperwork, it's more this, it's more that. But at the end of the day, it's about the bigger picture, right?
We want to make sure, let me take a step back. Realtors have important jobs. And we want to make sure that those jobs are done right, as do the realtors for the people of British Columbia. Regulation follows important jobs, right? Whether or not you're a doctor or a lawyer or a realtor.
It's almost like a badge of honor, right?
It is a bit of a badge of honor, and it's a cross to bear, depending on how you're doing. The bottom line is, as we, as a regulator, bring in new initiatives like data, like increased conversation, what we want to do is talk to GVR and other associations around the province, talk to BCREA, and make sure that we're doing that in the most efficient way. There are 30,000-ish of you. There's one of us. How that information flows, we want to make sure it's as easy and as it is for you to get it into us and us to share it. So what I would say is, to your members and to the realtors around the province, we are more aligned then probably we have differences. We all want to serve our clients. We all want to see an efficient market. We all want to see a market that is moving forward, dealing with all the opportunities and challenges that are out there. We are both concerned about our clients, your clients and the people of British Columbia, and it's a focus on professionalism. So putting all these things together, I would say, think of BCFSA's job in terms of confidence in the sector, making sure that people are dealing with risks, and we need to understand the data in order to understand that, and making sure that we're protecting consumers. It does connect in a circle. Sometimes it may not be exactly clear as to why we're asking for this or asking for that, and we should and we will do a better job of connecting the dots for folks.
Now, we do what we can to share the news and information that comes out of the regulator through our own channels. Members who want to get more kind of directly in touch with you, just as simple as getting to the website or giving you a call?
Yep, absolutely. The website is there. It's broken down in terms of if you're a registrant or members of the public or others. So go through that process. We are, like everything, we serve the people of British Columbia, and we serve the people of British Columbia through regulating and registrating. So at the end of the day, how we deal with you, how we communicate with you as registrants is important to us. So website's always a good place to start, and there's lots of contact and places to put your information in. A lot of your members are dealing with our licensing team as they go through the process, and I think there's some good dialogue and response, but website's always a good place to start.
All right, so Blair, we're going to have a little fun with you now. Our members, of course, are realtors. They're putting people in their dream homes every day. So we thought we'd go through a little rapid fire housing, living preference kind of session here with you if you're up for it.
Absolutely. Bring it on.
All right. So rent or own?
Own.
Country living or city living?
City living for business, country living for vacation.
Mountain views or ocean views?
Both. Condo and Cole Harbor. Love it.
Carpet or hardwood floors?
Hardwood floors.
Smart home or traditional home?
Oh, traditional. I need my keys.
Home gym or home office?
Home office. Sorry.
Home theater or game room?
Home theater. Movies. Sports.
Close to neighbors or lots of privacy?
Lots of privacy.
Pets or no pets?
Oh, pets.
Gotta have pets. Clutter-free or organized chaos?
Depending on the day.
This one will probably depend on the day too. Morning sunlight or evening sunset?
Evening sunset.
Evening sunset. Nice little stroll on the seawall down by Cole
Absolutely.
Harbor, right?
My favorite part of Vancouver.
Well, thanks again, Blair, for joining us today and for the insights into our profession's regulator. You know, the path to professionalism is perhaps the most critical one we tread. Realtors have more than a vested interest in it. Without it, and the confidence it fosters with the home buying and selling public you serve, the path to prosperity becomes impassable. With BCFSA, we're on this path together, and we'll all win with a higher standard of professionalism in BC real estate. I'm Jesse Lalime, and I'll see you down the next critical path.